I introduce you, Kaisei High School.
Is it showing the presentation screen? Hello? Okay. Can we begin? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna begin. Bridging the two ends of the nuclear spectrum. Hello, our names are Ryotaro Homa and
Katsutaka Suzuki
from Kaisei High School. This is how our school looks like to the left, and to the right is the location of our school in Tokyo. We wanted to go to Monterey, but circumstances have prevented us from joining you physically there. We are lucky enough to have been given the chance to do this presentation via Zoom. We would like to thank Ms. Toki Masako and all the administrative staff for making this possible. 2 years ago, I came across this quote about war by Plato. It was concise, yet it was so thought-provoking. All the nuances of the complicated nature of war were condensed in these 10 short words. Only the dead have seen the end of the war. For war in general, this quote has been true for more than 2,000 years. Today, the horror of nuclear weapons may lead us to despair and say, only the dead have seen the end of nuclear weapons. Let us be the ones to tell those who passed away that this quote will no longer hold true. Let us be the ones to tell our children and future generations that we have indeed put an end to nuclear weapons. And let us begin our presentation. Here's how we plan to present our research and proposal. First, we'll introduce the past treaties regarding nuclear weapons, and then explain our interviews that we have conducted with the hibakushas and successors, and our visit to Nagasaki University RECNA, which we'll explain in a moment, and then present our proposal for nuclear disarmament.
First of all, I would like to introduce some of the most important treaties. Let me begin with Non-Proliferation Treaty. NPT is absolutely a landmark international treaty. As pillars, this treaty holds up non-proliferation, peaceful use of nuclear energy, and disarmament. Non-proliferation here means the prevention of the spread of the nuclear weapons and other explosive devices beyond the five nuclear weapon states. This is seen by critics to discriminate against non-nuclear weapon states. Disarmament means the undertaking commitment on the part of nuclear weapon states to pursue nuclear disarmament. This is not seen to be sufficiently fulfilled. And in this treaty, peaceful use of nuclear energy is allowed. So the critics see it as a huge loophole. Additionally, this treaty overlooks the non-state threats. Now let's move on to CTBT. CTBT is an innovative treaty which bans all nuclear explosions everywhere and by everyone. It is to use extensive monitoring system using seismic and other technologies with hundreds of monitoring facilities all over the world. The treaty has not yet entered into force because 8 states, including the United States and China, have not ratified the treaty. We have witnessed continued nuclear testings by India, Pakistan, especially in recent years by North Korea. Then his Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty. This treaty requires the United States and the Soviet Union to eliminate all of the intermediate nuclear forces, and surprisingly, as a result, the two states reduced a total amount of 2,692 short, medium, and intermediate range missiles. However, the treaty has recently been thrown into uncertainty. The US President Donald Trump announced the US withdrawal from that treaty, citing Russia's non-compliance. The treaty has been suspended since February 2019, and questions remain with respect to China's capability in these missiles, and the issue has serious implications for Japan's security. Then in February, we went to Nagasaki to visit hibakshas and experts in Nagasaki University. So here, we would like to share with you the key messages and essential facts that we gleaned from our interviews. We first met Mr. Suenaga. With his many peers, Mr. Suenaga has visited many places to spread his experiences in atomic bombing in Nagasaki as a storyteller using his original picture show stories. Then the reason to participate in a group, he explained is that he felt empowered acting with like-minded people rather than acting alone. Then we felt the importance of an optimal environment in which like-minded people cooperate with each other. Then he also lamented Japanese government's unwilling posture toward nuclear disarmament. He said, if the government declares that nuclear weapons are absolute evil, I can stop this campaign without any regrets. Then, after the interview with Mr. Suenaga, we met Mr. Hirata, who is a grandchild of a hibakusha, and his grandfather was a poet. At first, Mr. Hirata was not willing to participate in nuclear non-proliferation activity, but he changed his mind when he was struck with deep emotion as he read his grandfather's diary, which he found after his death. He decided to publish books which contains his grandfather's poems to show what life was really like after the bombing. His current concern is the low level of interest toward nuclear weapons among younger generations. When he was going to give a lecture in elementary school, the teacher deleted what he thought were shocking lines from his script. That experience made him think that bare facts, though they may be shocking, should be told even to children. Then, at the end of a trip, we met Mr. Suzuki, Mr. Yamaguchi, and Miss Mitsuoka. They are experts at RECNA, which stands for Research Center for Nuclear Weapons Abolition, Nagasaki University. They taught us the defectiveness of the nuclear deterrence theory and the importance of the TPNW. Firstly, we discussed the nuclear deterrence theory. They explained that, to be meaningful, a deterrence theory must presuppose the use of nuclear weapons. So, if we support this theory, we tacitly admit the use of nuclear weapons. Thus, taking nuclear deterrence for granted is equivalent to encouraging the use of nuclear weapons. And there's a need to explore not just nuclear, but also non-nuclear deterrence. Also, if deterrence is to work, it is essential that one side has a good understanding of the other side. This is a challenge, for example, facing the current US-North Korea summit talks. Next, we talked about the significance of the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. It is significant as the first legally binding international agreement to comprehensively prohibit nuclear weapons, with the goal of leading towards their total elimination. However, the problem is how we get there. Unless nuclear weapon states, including United States, Russia, and China, agree to illegalize their nuclear weapons, the world could be divided into those who accept the role of nuclear weapons in ensuring security and those who reject such a role. However, in the domain of public opinion, the TPNW has had some resonance. For example, Resona Holdings, a major financial group in Japan, has announced a policy of not extending loans to borrowers that are involved in the development, production, or possession of nuclear weapons. Creating a framework to prohibit nuclear weapons, the treaty has really contributed to international peace. However, this treaty still lacks concrete systems for inspection, penalty, and so on. Therefore, there are still a lot of things to be done.
Now, on to our proposal. After all the interviews that we conducted in Nagasaki and Tokyo, we came up with this idea. Our proposal is to allow civil society and NGO representatives to be able to participate in the councils of governments all around the world. So, what is civil society anyway? A civil society is usually defined as a society considered as a community of citizens linked together by common interests and collective activity. According to the World Bank, a civil society includes, but not limited to, a wide array of organizations, including community groups, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, labor unions, foundations, etc. In other words, they are a group of citizens committed to the same cause. So, what inspired our proposal? First of all, in the establishment of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, the role of ICAN, the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, was vital. Like the aforementioned explanation of the TPNW, it was a huge success in getting one step towards the abolishment of nuclear weapons. It clearly made the possession and the use of nuclear weapons illegal. Without the active efforts of civil society groups such as ICAN, global security would be worse off. Secondly, democracy. Democracy is not a situation where the leader subjugates the citizens, but rather a system of government where the opinions of the citizens are reflected upon the policies of the government. By allowing civil society to express their opinions in the government, the view of citizens will be better reflected. Moreover, there is a lack of informed discussion of nuclear weapons and security, both in government councils and in civil society. This is especially the case in Japan. Given the experiences of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, nuclear weapons have been a highly polarizing issue, often the subject of intense debate between the idealistic proponents of nuclear disarmament and the realistic proponents of nuclear deterrence. This divide needs to be bridged. There should be an informed discussion on how to best achieve the twin goals of eliminating nuclear weapons and ensuring our security. Those in government cannot remain indifferent to the concerns of civil society actors. Civil society actors, on their part, cannot act in ignorance of the government's need to ensure security for its people. Here, I quote from Nehru, the former Indian Prime Minister. Ignorance is always afraid to change. The ignorance of the whole situation makes it extremely hard to change the current situation of nuclear weapons. So, how might this system of informed discussion within the governments be held? First of all, we'll need to gather the civil society representatives who will speak to the government. Civil society organizations that are willing to participate in this should apply, stating their reason and their motives in participating. It should be open to new organizations every time so as to bring more opinions to the government. Nextly, the creation of a Council for Civil Society. We call this regular meeting the Council for Nuclear Disarmament, C&D, bridging the two sides of the nuclear spectrum, as in the title of our presentation. The C&D should be held regularly with the participation of government officials and civil society groups. What is important is that it will be an independent council within the government so that civil society representatives will be able to express their thoughts candidly without interference from the government or the bureaucracy. In addition, there will be both government officials and civil societies that will represent the discussions. Just like this graph shows, if the government assert their standpoint of ensuring security by maintaining nuclear deterrence, and the civil societies argue from the ethical point of view, there's a possibility of a compromise that is made, reaching a step towards achieving the twin goals of heightened security and nuclear disarmament. What is more is that the citizens and the government will be able to foster a multi-perspective understanding on the issue of nuclear weapons. All issues will be better understood if citizens understand the issue from a number of perspectives. In this case, as aforementioned, the citizens and the government will approach the subject respectively from the standpoint of security based on the theory of nuclear deterrence and from the ethical standpoint regarding nuclear weapons. In order to fully understand the complicated nature of nuclear weapons, the understanding from both perspectives is vital. The abolishment of nuclear weapons is not a simple issue that can be determined solely either from the ethical standpoint or from the security perspective. By implementing informed discussions between the government and civil societies, the public will understand both sides of the argument, enabling them to make well-considered judgments. Nuclear deterrence and nuclear disarmament are important enough subjects to warrant such balanced judgments. Looking back at all the possible treaties and errors of the past, we find a recurring dilemma between security and disarmament. We need to make the first step to break out of this dilemma, and that should start with bridging the divide between the government and civil society. By implementing our idea, let's join the movement to end the constant threats posed by nuclear weapons and say, we will see the end of nuclear weapons. And we're done. And we would like to express our sincere gratitude to all these people for making our presentation possible, and thank you for listening.